But it's pretty easy because you know what Mama says, right? About
Mm.
rowing. If you
No,
ain't if you, no, if you ain't rowing, you ain't growing. So
she never wrong. She never
no,
wrong.
and don't argue with Mama.
Don't argue.
So
Excited for today's show. Our first guest on Pushing Performance ever, a historical moment. We have our friend, our colleague, a legend in the game in his own right, Coach Joel Sanders. And for those of you who don't know Joel, he's been a strength coach at Exos, or specifically a performance coach at Exos for 15 years. He's worked with adults, pro baseball, basketball, and football. He specializes in performance training for executives, entrepreneurs, and weekend warriors. He's been featured on T Nation, Simplifaster, StrengthCoach.com, Men's Health Magazine, Men's Fitness, Men's Journal, and Women's Health Magazine. He's also the founder of Woof Strength Company, which has the best-selling squat wedge on Amazon, the Woof Wedge. And if you don't have one, it's in the show notes. Go get you some. He's also a husband, a father of 5 girls, and a fan of the 2-time defending champ Georgia Bulldogs. And being an Eagles fan,
Mhm.
go Dogs, baby.
Go Dogs. Go Dogs. No, I'm excited for everybody to take a listen to this episode. I think a lot of great coaches and or people in industry interested in all things health and wellness will get some good nuggets. We talked about everything from learning how to, as a coach, how to process and simplify better cueing in your coaching. Um, Gave some good lessons for all of his 15 years
Mhm.
of being in the industry. Took a lot of notes there, and tips for being an entrepreneur as a coach, and how we can go about it. So there's a lot of good nuggets in here. Make sure you get your pen, your paper, your recording device. Make sure you hit that rewind button a few times, because I remember I needed him to say it back again. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
so
love it.
it's good.
Let's get into it. We have a special, special guest, Coach Joel Sanders. Got a lot of good things on the docket for today. Excited for it, Joel. How are you?
great, all good, ready to roll.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Before we get into it too much, just wanted to give you a quick second to talk a little bit about yourself. I know everybody loves to do that, but can you give the people just a brief rundown of where you're at now and a little bit of the path to get there?
Yeah, I've been a performance coach at Exos for 15 years. How I got here is went to college in Georgia. When I was a personal trainer, getting my exercise science degree, I picked up a copy of Mark Verstegen's book, Core Performance. And I read that book and it was like love at first page. And so I was doing mini bands and foam rolling and single leg already. Much of that was kind of even a thing. And so when it came time to do an internship, I'm like, I'm going to get out to headquarters and learn under this man and his team. And I did. So got an internship, got hired, moved to Pheonix, met my wife randomly at a bar one night. Now we have 5 girls under the age of 10. So we're we're
Whew.
consistent. No Joel Jr. But I'm lucky and blessed, and yeah, man. Still, so we're kicking in Pheonix, and that's where I am now.
Absolutely love it, man. Absolutely love it. No, super interesting path, super interesting story. I mean, girl dad times 5 alone is absolutely incredible.
Starting
Uh,
five.
I mean, you got a whole lineup. You got the whole squad. You got the whole squad right there. University of Georgia coming soon. But the one of the ways that I was actually first introduced to you, and I don't think we've ever talked about this, but it was through your adult mega mix on Spotify.
Ooh,
I mean,
Okay.
I think it still lives on Spotify, but it was just a clean playlist. It was like 6 hours long and just all bangers. Just
Yeah.
absolute. So that was always running out in the gym for our adult classes.
All right. Well, glad I could contribute from afar. But yeah, I'm all about I think those mega mixes now are somewhere around 30 plus hours of workout content. So yeah, I'm not in it for the Spotify follows, but feel free to look me up on Spotify, and if you want some banging playlists.
We can definitely link that in the show notes because they're gems, especially if you're like in an adult environment where you can't just be playing ratchet music like full curse words all the time. This is a nice medium where you can still get some good hype stuff in there.
It's a thin line. It's a thin line. So you gotta tiptoe that line.
I know a lot of coaches are perking their ears right now, like, okay, I need that one. I need that one.
But you've throughout the past year or two, you've put more JT than myself. You put JT onto a lot of music because JT be sleeping on rap music sometimes. So right now, who would you say your top 3 rappers are in the game?
If I really think about the top few albums that I've played out over the last couple of years, one would be Big Sean's Detroit 2. So I know JT is a Big Sean fan. So Big Sean is easily on he's probably my number
Detroit
one. Right?
too. Interesting. Okay.
Baby Keem. I think when his album, whatever, a year ago or so, like Spotify told me I was in the 0.001 of Baby Keem listeners for that year. So that album was strong. But the one that I've been listening to lately, Key Glock, Glaucoma 2.
Glaucoma 2. Yep.
Oh man.
Crazy.
So
That's crazy.
see, I'm not going to just come in and give you the typical Drakes and Kendricks and J. Cole's. So try to stay off the beaten path a little
That's
bit.
why we needed that. That's why we needed that list for sure. You put me on, and then put, I'm sure a lot of people on. Just listen to that. Keem and Glaucoma too. Okay.
If you haven't listened to Baby Keem's album, The Melodic Blue, you got to get. I don't know what you're doing. Pause the show.
So good.
Okay. Do you have a firm top 3 all time? I know that's hard, but you got a firm.
Yeah, it's firm. I mean, if we just go off of hours of plays, if I go back to my like college, like 2000, 2010s, my top 3 would have to be, number 1 is Wheezy, Lil Wayne. Like his run from Carter 1, 2, 3, and then you mix like his mixtapes, No Ceilings. I mean, to me, it was unmatched. Like his run there from in the 2000, 2010s was unmatched. So that'd be one.
Fair.
Yeah, I'm from Georgia, so you got to go. Like my other 2 would be just down south Georgia boys, which are Jeezy. So Jeezy's Thug Motivation 101 in college, like in Georgia, man, that had the streets jumping. So yeah, that had the dirt roads and the streets of Georgia jumping. And then like T.I. just never missed. Like every album he ever put out was just like lock and load for me at least. So
Wheezy, Jeezy, and T.I.
Yep.
Little TIP. Okay.
That's what made the Gorillas bumping in the trunk back in Georgia, huh?
Yep. Beating in the box. Absolutely.
What would you define as your, like, what of those makes them the top? I guess that's both for right now and all time. Like, what's your definition of top?
So they all brought the juice. Like if you're juiceless, you're useless. So I'm a juice guy when it comes to rap. Like it's my coffee, it's my lifting music. Gets me focused. But okay, here this will transition at some point into our art of cueing, which is when you listen to Wayne and Jeezy, I would say Big Sean to a degree too. Their wordplay, the way they use analogies and and like vivid imagery is just it's impressive. Like I love it. So
Okay.
yeah, so I don't know. I think those two
I
reasons.
like that. Phil,
Yeah.
what would you define for yours? Like, because that's like an argument that's never ending, like top anything. So I'm just curious with rapping.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, art is subjective. Like, what does good mean? I'm kind of the same as Joel. Like, I listen to music to have fun, and like to kind of transport myself from where I'm at right now. Like, if I'm in the gym, I want to be feeling like I'm LeBron walking into the court to put up 50. Like when I'm walking into the gym, I want to feel good, right? I want to have a good time. So for me, yeah, I'm similar to Joe. I'm going full juice. Like it's got to be fun. It's got to make me want to dance or make me want to do something. So that's when people are like when I say like Lil Uzi is one of my favorite rappers, they're like, you're an idiot, and I might be, but he's bringing the juice. He's bringing the juice every time. So it's like, what do you want me to do? I'm having a
We're
blast.
gonna have to put that in the tag. If you're juiceless, you're useless. I love that one. I love that. I was actually thinking about that on my way to the gym. I'm like, just listen to rap and asking myself, why do I like a lot of these rappers? And that thought came up of the imagery and the storytelling, which is kind of why I'm here now. And actually, one of the reasons I was brought on to you of like the guy who can create cues and create imagery in coaching, right? That was one of the top things that really brought me on to your work as a coach. So I'm just curious with where did that come about? Like I know I don't think I ever really asked you, or maybe talked about it somewhere, but just curious if your interest of creating cues and creating stories and getting people to understand what you're saying came from somewhere specific. Rap?
Well, I think so. First, when you think about queuing, or when I think about it, I mean, first off, it it works. So when the fact that it works, like vivid queuing and queuing done well, maybe want to explore more. And one place that really ratcheted up my interest was the book Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. And in that book, they bring up a concept called the curse of knowledge. And the curse of knowledge is because you know something deeply, it's tough for you to put yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't know that thing. And so the analogy they use is our brains are not like filing cabinets. Our brains are more like Velcro with thousands of little tiny hooks. And on each hook is an experience in the past of the way something looked or felt or smelled. And if we can relate something someone doesn't know, like hip hinging, to something they do know, like well, we can go into it soon, but if we could take something they don't know and relate it to something they do know, a la an analogy, imagery, humor, then it shortens the gap from knowledge or something they don't know to learning. So yeah, really, cues work. Gabrielle Wolf has done a lot of research on attentional focus and showing how it works. And so, yeah, I think those concepts really, reading the book Made to Stick, kind of put my love for cueing into hyperdrive.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think I remember you mentioning that book a while back, and it's always been something I've kept on my shelf. And with the curse of knowledge, now that we're talking about this, Phil, like we always talk like, how do I have a growth mindset? Right? I'm like, sometimes I don't even know. And I think now that Joel's mentioning that, that's really what sparked like my understanding of like, oh, okay, there is more than what I don't know, or than what I do know.
Yeah.
So that's always been something that stood out for me for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about talk about cues work. As you were saying that, I still like vividly remember a lot of the cues that you've used like around me, whether like working events or coaching a group. Like I still remember talking about getting a kettlebell in the rack position, talking about having just enough room under your arm for the Sunday paper. Like I like for some reason like that cue just like vividly sticks out in my mind, and that's a movement where I always felt like I'm just like, you kind of put your thumb here and your arms kind of down by the side and the kettlebell's kind of rested here, and then you just came in like, no, it's boom boom boom, like that's what it is, and we're done. And then it's immediately, like you said, like drawing that connection for people, right? It's like, okay, I can visualize that. That makes sense to me, versus like talking about where my lat is in relation to my elbow holding this weird ass kettlebell.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you use imagery and analogies, it sticks. It sticks. So it's easier to learn, but you remember it. So one of the ways that I show this to in like mentorships and education groups is when I'm teaching them concepts or movements, the next day I'll ask them, "Hey, how did I teach you to find neutral spine, or how did I teach you a kettlebell swing?" And almost invariably, the only things they bring up are the analogies, the stories. Like if I tell you a vivid story, you can probably remember the high points of that story, even if I ask you a year from now. So yeah, it just sticks with people.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you mentioned something that sticks, I remember in a recent practical with med balls specifically, you had a cue saying "throw ball hard," right? And it still sticks to me now. A few words that can illustrate the point there. Something I've been struggling with, and I've been curious to ask you, is how can we as coaches meet and communicate to the level of the individual in front of us, right? So I think if I were to give that same cue, without much context to somebody who wants to learn, like rotational power, I need to, exactly use my hip and torso. If they want to actually learn exactly what happens within their body, more internal cueing. Um, how do you find that balance to simplify the concept enough to the intelligence of that individual without treating them like they're like a 2-year-old kid?
Okay, so let me introduce a concept or a rule to you and coaches. It's called the SET rule, SET. And so anytime you're introducing a new movement, all you got to do is follow the SET rule. And so the S is for setup. How are you going to get set up for a movement? Because if you're not set up right, like if it don't look right, it don't fly right. Okay, so if I'm set up poor, so let's say you're coaching a reverse lunge. Is if I start with my feet too wide, I'm not going to be in alignment when I step back. So my feet have to be pretty close together for my setup, and I need to start tall so that I can take a big step back. So number one is when you introduce a movement, make sure that you coach the setup, or when a client or member is getting ready to do it, they need to be set up right. So that's first. That's the S in set. The second is execution. So when you are coaching execution, I want you to cue like a caveman, meaning say less. And so you just brought up med balls. If you're a new client, I'm saying, okay, here is the purpose of this med ball toss. Throw ball hard. That's it. That's the intent. Or if I'm coaching a reverse lunge, I'm going to say step back, drop down, drive up. Like, think about that. That's how many words is that? Step back, drop down, drive up. We're talking 6 words. Whereas usually younger coaches, or even some older, they're going to teach reverse lunge, and they're going to say, okay, so start by standing up, and you want your core engaged. And what you're going to do is you're going to take a step back, and foot is on the ground, and then you're going to lower down until you're close to 90 degrees. And Do you see what I'm saying? How many words is that?
Too many.
Wait, when you're coaching, your words are bullets. You only have so many bullets in the chamber before people completely tune you out. And when you're in a gym, what's going on? You probably have music. Hopefully, you've got hip hop over the speakers. You've got other people clanging and banging, moving around. And so you're fighting for people's attention.
Mhm.
And so when you are going over execution, you got to keep it really simple. You like a caveman, step back, drop down, drive up. Or, so I was coaching a new client this morning. They've never done dumbbell bench ever. And so I'm like, okay, here's how dumbbell bench. You go back, palms forward, and here's all I told them. Control down, punch up. And then I say it again, control down, punch up. So he gets on the bench, he gets his dumbbells, and do you know under his breath what he was saying? Like I could hear it barely. He was literally repeating like a metronome, control down, drive up,
Yeah.
control down, drive up, as he was doing, or punch up. And so, but had I explained this big dissertation to him about dumbbell bench and how he needs to keep his elbows tucked tight and he needs to go down to about 90 degrees, but don't let it go down to where your shoulder rolls forward. You see what I'm saying? He wouldn't have
Yeah.
been focused on that. So the E in set is execution, but when you coach execution, do it like a caveman and make your bullets count. You want to be really sharp with your words. So that's the E. Now the T in set, this is where you can shine as a coach. The T is a technique tip. It's the 1%er. It's the thing that members, that your clients aren't going to get on YouTube. Okay. And so this is where your expertise can shine. So for example, okay, let's go back to reverse lunge. What are technique tips that I could give for reverse lunge? So I already told everyone, okay, all right, you're going to grab your dumbbells, you're going to grab your kettlebells, whatever we're using. Zip up tall, feet close together. That's your setup. Okay, execution. Here we go. Big step back, drop down, knee just above the ground, and then drive up. Right? I give that, and I always demo 3 reps. Okay, because it takes like you first rep see it, second, and then third rep they got it. Once then I give my all right, here's the one thing I want you to focus on. So here could be some examples for reverse lunge. Your front heel, I don't want to see any sunlight under your front heel. That front heel should stay glued to the ground. Or I see a lot of people that take too small of a step on reverse lunge. So I'm like, okay, when you step back, I want you to imagine that you're stepping back over a tiny stream and you have to step all the way over that stream to the other side without your foot getting wet. So I don't want you like dragging your foot on the ground. Take this big, sexy, confident step back into the lunge. I could talk about them dropping their knee down. Like you'll also see people that don't drop into the lunge. I'm going to say, hey, when I was like one that I use is when I was a little kid, my mom I had a little step stool. It said Joel on there with a little dump truck, and my mom would set my clothes out on it for going to kindergarten. I want you to imagine that step stool is behind you. You have to touch your knee to that step stool every rep. Your knee should drop into the lunge. So I'm not going to give all 3 of those at one time, but I am going to give one of those 3 cues. I could talk about a laser. Like, hey, if you have a laser on your front knee, that laser better be pointed straight forward. I don't want to see your front knee cave in as you go like into that lunge. So setup, execution, and then lastly, your technique tip is like, okay, now let me drop some knowledge on you, or this is the one thing that I'm going to give you to get more out of this movement. Yeah. So I think that's a little bit of a system around how you can think about like executing cueing, introducing movements overall that can like keep you on point.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great framework. And I think like even within the technical portion, like even when as a coach you're sharing your knowledge and expertise, like maybe it's a little bit above that, quote unquote caveman level, but you're still, like you said earlier, speaking to something that they understand, right? Providing them an analogy or providing them some sort of comparison to something that they already have a frame of reference to. So when you talked about learning earlier, they can actually remember, they can actually learn what you're trying to say versus, throwing a bunch of geek speak out for lack of a better term and trying to blow their mind with science. And they're just like, yeah, I don't want to hear all that. This means nothing to me.
Yeah. And here's one of my favorites is I actually tell them what I don't want them to do. So that new client that I had this morning, we did goblet squats and single leg RDLs, landmine single leg RDLs. And we talked about like he's doing a single leg RDL and his posture's going to shit. He's reaching towards the ground. And so I'm like, Derek, you're crawling up in your turtle shell when you're doing those single leg RDLs. And then so now after I explained to him like what he looked like or what his turtle shell, now anytime he went into that, he's going down into a goblet squat, he gets a little kyphotic. I'm like, turtle shell. And then he kind of zips up tight. So you make your cues. You can tell people what not to. I'm like, hey, everybody in this other group that I just coached, they all did this wrong. Here's what I want you to do better. And it snaps people like, oh, okay, he like that. That's how you start to get attention. And then you shorten it. Like, I know you can't go around telling these long stories all the time, but I can start out with a story. So take a glute bridge. If a lot of people, they just bridge up and down, they're probably not thinking about squeezing much of anything. They're just lifting their hips. So I could start with a story and say, okay, when you do this glute bridge, I want you to imagine that you have a penny. A penny's way back when it was a form of currency that people actually used.
We don't have those.
Yeah, I was like, what are you? A what?
So, and I'll even ask, hold on, quiz. Who's on the penny? What president? Abe Lincoln, right?
Honest Abe.
Honest Abe, he's got a beard. I want you to take that penny, put it between your butt cheeks, and when you bridge up, I want you to squeeze Abe's beard every rep. Okay, so it gets you laughing. It's a little vivid humor. Now from then on, when I'm coaching it and you're doing it, I can just say, pinch the penny, over and over. So a story becomes a hashtag like caveman cue that can be used over and over in quick situations, because you can't, when people are moving and training, you don't have time to like break it down for them. You just going to come in like a sniper and use some sharp words.
I love that. I love that a lot. I'm gonna steal that penny one for sure. But going back, I'm just curious what you think. Like, why do we do that as young coaches? Like, why do we go from chapter 1 to chapter 30 on a reverse lunge? Like, stay tall, step back, and all those little things that we think is important, early on. But why do you think?
Well, a real genius makes things simple. And young coaches just they're not to that level where they can make it simple yet. And so they don't know what to focus on themselves. So I think you just start to word vomit and you saying all the things and they, like, young coaches have so much going through their mind. And where the expert, the genius, can boil it down, make it simple, and take it step by step. So yeah, I think a lot of it takes time.
No, I love the conversation of cueing. I think we can have a whole episode in itself with this, but I know you're probably like a few years ahead of that. I know you practice with your systems, that you've created with yourself, but I know a lot of your focus and attention now is it's a little bit more in the trenches, right? And I was trying to put a dog analogy in there, with wolf, all that stuff. Couldn't find it though.
Bro, I saw
I,
the
I gotta
gears. I saw the smoke coming out of your ears, bro. Like wheels were
I
turning.
gotta listen to Kame. Maybe I gotta listen to Kame. I
You
mean, he'll
do.
put me on. He'll put me on. But yeah, I know your focus is a little bit more in this Wolf Strength company. But yeah, just tell us a little bit more about that. How did it come about?
Yeah, so Wolf Strength Company is my strength accessories company that I sell mostly on Amazon. So it came about. My wife did a mentorship on selling on Amazon,
Hmm.
and so she got into creating some products and craft kits. And so I was able to watch her a little bit from the sidelines. And then we started thinking about like, hey, you're an expert in fitness, strength. Where are there gaps that could be? Is there a need anywhere?
Hmm.
And so when I thought about, so my first product was a squat wedge called the Wolf Wedge, and #1 bestseller on Amazon, by the
Best in
way.
the game.
Uh,
Best wedge in the game.
but here's so you start out. Most people start out by they get the 5 or 10 pound plates, they put them under their heels, right? You're like, wow, it works. Squat feels a little bit better. You stay more upright, a little more ankle mobility. So it works. So here's the squat wedges that were on the market, or mostly on the market. If you go to Amazon, are like 2 solo wedges that are really usually skinny and small. And so, you feel like you're like parallel parking, trying to look back with a barbell on your back and get on these skinny wedges. So I'm like, okay, I want to create a single wedge. Now there was single wedges on the market, like a big bodied XL wedge, one piece once, but most of them were metal and they were 100, 125, $130 per. They're heavy. They're hard to ship. You drop a kettlebell on them, they actually ding. They're not as durable as you think. So I'm like, can I make a high density foam wedge, kind of like the bottom of a Olympic lifting shoe, which is like manufactured compressed material? Can I make a 1 pound big XL squat wedge that's half the price of everything else on the market? And so, yeah, that's where kind of Wolf Wedge started. I named it Wolf Wedge because the wolf that kind of sort of wants it never catches its prey. So you gotta attack. And started my own company. We started selling on Amazon. It's been like way better than probably I ever imagined or thought it would be. But that's how I got started.
That's so cool. I mean, hey, listen, that's what happens when you make a damn good product. Good things happen. We have at the gym I train at now, it's like a random gym in San Diego. We have the two wedges, like the single wedges, and it like literally is the most stressful thing in the world trying to get set up on one of those. And there's like so narrow. Like whose foot is that narrow?
I don't know why right. I mean, you like when you got a bar on your back, the last thing you want to worry about is not having, you want to have confidence in whatever you're standing on. So yeah, I mean, that was why I made it like Wolf Wedge is 27 inches wide. So plenty wide. But yeah, but it's light. It always surprises people by how light it is, easy to store.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's where I started. And now I'm like, okay, there's something here. So now I just released my second product called the Wolf Nordic Curl Strap. So for folks, like if you don't have access to a glute ham raise, back extension machine, if you don't have a partner that's willing to like pin your ankles down to do Nordic hamstring curls, it's a tie down strap that you use with a workout bench where you can tie yourself down, do Nordic ham curls. You can do off bench obliques and core work with. So really easy, fits in a bag. You could do it at home gym or bring it to a gym with you. So product number 2, I now have a product line. So, yeah.
Let's go.
Line. I'll
JT,
tell you what, man.
I saw you getting those in this morning. How you feeling?
Yeah, my hams are barking now. Tell you
There
that.
you go. I
had a client use it, the Nordic curl strap recently, and I was gonna have them do isos. So like where they lean forward, hold for 5 seconds, and then pull back up. Like, I'm not even talking about full Nordic ham or anything. And first rep, guy leans out and immediately both double hamstring cramp. And he's tied down too. He's like hog tied to the bench. And I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't help it. Like, I knew him well, and I know him well enough that I was laughing. I couldn't even get him out. He's all tied down to the strap. So yeah, if you want bulletproof hamstrings, the Nordic curl strap is
a way. Hey.
He needs it more than ever, for sure.
You gotta get some working on
it was
that.
really easy to get in and get out of. So no, highly recommend for that, for both products, but especially the strap, just because I just used it this morning. But no, I love that. There's a great product line. Hopefully you get a website soon so we can get a nice push and P code or something up there.
Hey,
yeah,
say less. But with that, so you talk about things like financial fitness, and I mean, just in our private conversations, you've talked about, financial stuff probably more than other coaches that I've been around. So especially for, an intern, for a younger coach, we don't get into this industry to make money, or at least make a ton of money. It's not like we're having crazy salaries in our jobs. We love what we do. We love the gym. So, with that in mind, do you have any practical advice for coaches looking to either, do something similar or just kind of do something in that kind of entrepreneurial space?
Yeah. So I think of it in 2 steps. So the first step, if you're trying to like build your own brand and like make some moves, is like, first you have to be a master. Like, you have to have some form of mastery in the game. So how do you become a master? To me, one, you got to coach them up. You got to put some hours in coaching people to understand what is it that what are their frustrations? What are they looking for? What do they want out of their gym, fitness, life? Like, you have to interact and like put in somewhere near 10,000 hours. Like, that rule, you got to take the long cut. And ain't no shortcuts. Take the long cut. You got to train yourself. Like, get in the workshop, you need experience under the bar. They don't put championship rings on smooth hands. So your hands better be calloused. Read, listen to this podcast, attend workshops. So I recently, I tried to put a dollar value on my 4-year degree, my internships, all the workshops that I've attended, masterminds, the whole nine, right? I came up with $250,000 is how much I've spent. So when you add up $250K spent plus 10,000 hours on the training floor, training folks, plus thousands of workouts on my own, plus hiring coaches to make my training programs, like Coaches Need Coaches. Think about how much I have invested to get to the point where I'm like, yeah, I feel like a pseudo expert in my line, in my field. So I'm coming from a position of strength, of where I position myself to be able to write articles or create a line of strength products, you name it. So that's number one. When you ask me like, where do you start, is you got to be putting in some work on the training floor and learning.
Love that.
So however long you may think that takes, some people may think it takes 5 years. Some say 10. That can vary, but that's number one. And then number two, if I think about what took me to what I feel like was the next level, meaning what took me from being someone who, I'm working, my 9 to 5, I'm a good coach, I'm doing my thing Monday through Friday, to, man, I want to have more impact. I want to educate other coaches. I want to build a passive income business that makes
Yeah.
money while I'm sleeping. What took me there was I needed to invest in masterminds and mentorships.
Mm.
So for me, I the two mentorships, I did a fitness business mastermind that for 3 years. So
Oh.
that really got me thinking differently about. I had to learn about business is really what it came down to, and thinking differently there. And then I already mentioned it is. I mean, my wife. We it was a big investment, the Amazon mentorship. It was a full year mentorship. Um, and so those two, like, I can, you got to continue to invest. You can't just duct tape everything together and, like, you got to you got to put some skin in the game. And I
Yeah.
think that's how, like, start with mastery, start with the foundation, and then find a mentor, or most likely pay for a mastermind or like-minded individuals or groups who are doing something that you want to do. That, so I really think those are. Oh, I have a bonus though.
Oh.
There's one bonus to those two. Work on Saturdays.
Hey. Okay.
Work. So here's what I mean is I I think, like, if you're a coach, let's say you're a coach in your 20s. If you're in your 20s, most coaches in their 20s don't have kids. Maybe they're in a relationship, maybe they're, but what I'm trying to get to is you got some free time.
Mm.
And if the average person works Monday through Friday, let's say they work 40 hours, just to keep it simple. If you work even a half day on Saturdays, if you work 4 more hours, or maybe you work close to a full day, you are working 10 to 20% more than the average person.
Mm.
And if you do that consistently, I think over the course of months, weeks, months, years, that can distance you, and it allows you to start building some of these, like, entrepreneurial streams, like revenue streams, whether it's, yeah, I write remote training programs, or I train people special programs on Saturdays, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning new skills, whatever it is I think young coaches need to take advantage of Saturdays more often.
That just speaking to my heart. Saturday. So Saturday for me, Saturday mornings for the longest has been my protected learning time. Like, my fiance knows, like, don't bother me, don't be coming with the questions. That's changed a little bit as we're planning for the wedding. We're planning for weddings. That's changed a little bit. But that's that is my time to kind of lock in for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, whatever it is, and like maybe go through a course, maybe read a book, maybe read a bunch of papers on a specific topic. But I feel like, at least for me, stacking that over 5, 6 years, like, I feel like I've had the opportunity to read like hundreds of books and go through tens of courses and all these things that if I didn't have that protected time, then I never would have had the opportunity to go through those things. And now, you know, now I feel comfortable sharing my opinion. Now I feel comfortable teaching coaches, but it's because of that time, that money invested.
Yeah. Well, competence builds confidence.
Mm.
And so, like, that's what I heard you say. But I mean, Phil, there's a reason you're the youngest that I know. You're the youngest member on the coach education team in our company. And you said it to me, how many coaches ask you, man, how can I get a job? Like, how do
Oh
I
yeah,
do what you're doing? Right?
yeah.
How do I go from, just coaching, 5 days a week, I'm in my whatever corporate wellness, or I'm in my gym, to,
Mhm.
like, where I'm teaching other coaches. It's like, yeah, look at the work. They don't understand the work that
Yeah,
you're
right.
putting in
Yeah,
while they're chilling on Saturday mornings.
yeah, yeah. And plus, it's just
Yeah.
like you talked about the mastery piece as well. Like, and again, speaking to why your products make sense, and why they sell, and why people like them, is because, like you said, you put in the time, you understand the fitness market from the business side, but more than anything, you understand it from like an actual coach and a trainee side, right? You know what people want, you know what people need, you know what people are looking for, and you're not operating on assumption. Like, you have 15 years put in, like you know exactly what they're looking for, and then now you can come in and start to make changes for the positive and make a product or products that make sense for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that came to mind, actually, there's so many nuggets in there. There's so many things that came to mind. I think you probably get that question asked to you, like, what would you tell your younger self, coach self, I guess. Um, learning business is probably like key. I hope that's in the current college curriculums now, because I think it takes a while for us as younger coaches to understand how important business is within our industry, right? So I liked how you called that out a lot. One of my favorite Big Sean lines too came up. It took 10 years to be an overnight success.
Oh, I thought you were
So
gonna
I
go
think,
Jay-Z. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman.
yeah, that's a good one too.
Another bar.
I'd rather
Another bar.
I'd rather have a dinner with Jay-Z though. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about
That's
that
fair.
another time.
So Joel, you've teased on your Instagram a couple times, but talked about writing a presentation, an article called 15 Years, 15 Lessons. So beyond just the fact that you've been in the industry for 15 years, what inspired you to start to work on something like that?
Mike Boyle has always done, like, he's done I don't know, he's like 25 years, 25 lessons. I think he did a
Yeah.
30-30. So yeah, I love them. I love
Yeah.
those because they're reflective. They're reflective articles and presentations, where you're like, yo, you're going to boil down your big rock lessons, all in 1 hour. So I don't know. I felt like it was time.
Okay. So so with that reflection in mind, like as you were going through this process of writing it, did you get some good like introspection time and learn a little bit about yourself throughout it?
For sure. For sure. I mean, the some of the lessons were off the top of my head and I knew,
Hmm.
but there were a handful where I had to actually like crystallize the ideas in my head.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So we talked before the show about the 15, but for time's sake, there was a couple big ones that really stood out to me and JT. First one in the training realm being choosing or first identifying and then choosing high return on investments or high return on investment movements. So high ROI
Yeah.
movements. So with that lesson, can you break it down for us? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. High ROI movements to me are movements that give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of time. Like, I'm going to spend some time on it. This is going to have a big impact on my performance, my results. But here's the other is I need movements that me as a coach that I feel like I can coach quicker and get someone pushing the intensity faster. For
Mm.
instance, like a kettlebell swing, plenty of like great results and man, it gets your heart rate up. It takes a long time to teach a kettlebell swing.
Yeah.
Turkish get up, hang clean, those movements, I love them. I do them all the time,
Hmm.
but I don't program them nearly as much with my clients and my members because it takes too long to teach. So high ROI movements to me are great results, but easy to teach and learn as well when you're the member. So easy to learn and not as maybe like frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
And they're safe. That's the third is like they're safe. So I can push them. So let me give you some examples. So I'll
Mm.
give you my big four for each movement pattern.
Okay.
So let's take upper body pushing and pulling. So my highest ROI movement for upper body pulling is dumbbell row. One arm dumbbell row. And you can go knee on the bench or you could go like both feet on the ground, like a 3-point, hand on the
Hmm.
bench. But one of those.
Okay.
And I mean, but it's pretty easy because you know what mama says, right? About rowing. If you
No,
ain't, if you, no, if you ain't rowing, you ain't growing. So
She never wrong. She never
no,
wrong.
and don't argue with mama.
Don't
So
argue.
here, I love one arm rows because you can handle a lot of load. Most people can handle heavy dumbbells,
Mm.
but I don't know if I've ever seen anyone get injured doing a one arm dumbbell row. So easy, like push the intensity, great bang for the buck, but like rowing and growing. So that's upper body pulling. For upper body pushing, my highest ROI movement is dumbbell incline bench press.
Mm.
Now, why incline? So I'm gonna give you two reasons why incline. One is for dumbbell flat bench, it takes a little while to learn how to get the dumbbells back into position and then sit back up with them. So it's actually easier, or let's say like someone like maybe low back's a little funky. Again, it's harder to get heavy dumbbells up and down from a flat bench. So just a little bit easier to get set up on incline. And then the other, if I'm training mixed group, male female, is incline bench gives you a little bit more like shoulder work, a little bit like less straight chest or horizontal press. So females tend to like incline bench more because it doesn't just feel like they're working their pecs, which sometimes you'll get like some, they're like, yeah, I don't want to work my pecs too much. And
Yeah.
so incline bench can hit a nice sweet spot of pleasing guys and gals within a group. So easier to get set up, and you can kind of please both males and females a little easier.
I never thought about it being easier to get set up. Like that's something that never crossed my mind. But like when you said that, I immediately thought about clients I work with in the past who like, after you finish your last rep, then you kind of bring them down, and then you're stuck there, and they're like trying to sit up with it. You're like pushing them up. That's a good call. That's a really good call.
So those are my two highest ROI upper body movements. For lower body, landmine, single leg RDL. And when I say landmine, I'm like, you're standing perpendicular to the barbell doing a single leg RDL, right? And that's just for balance. It's just easier to balance because you got it fixed in on one side. But I'd much rather teach a single leg RDL and start to load that heavier than try to teach RDLs and deadlifts to a big group or to a new client. So I still love deadlifts, but I'm going to start with a single leg. And for my lower body push, make walking lunges great again.
Whoa.
That's my push right now. That's my next t-shirt. Make walking lunges great again.
I was not ready for that.
Yeah. So I did a piece for Women's Health Magazine, and they asked me like, what are the 4 exercises that women should be doing to to grow their glutes? And I said walking lunges. And the editor hit me back and said, hey, I just want to make sure this was right because you didn't include squats. And I was like, no, that wasn't a typo. So walking lunges, here's what I like about them is they're rhythmic. So you got like some locomotion involved so that they feel good. I love lunges because you get a deeper range of motion. You want to grow, you want to recruit the glutes, you need range of motion at the hip.
Yeah.
And so I need leg separation and range of motion. And I just feel like I can also load walking lunges heavyish though. Like, I mean, I guess you can load a lot of lunges heavy, but like those are ones where to me, there's something about stepping forward into a lunge. I don't like lunges where you step forward, a forward lunge, and push back to start. Yeah, it's just most people don't have that ability. Like they don't do it well. But it's easier. Like reverse lunges are hard for people to step back into it and trust it. But there's something about seeing where you're stepping that I feel like it allows them more confidence to step into that lunge. So I'm into. I mean, I'm loading it. I mean, we're loading barbells on the backs, kettlebell front rack. Like you can load it, many different ways. But those 4. one-arm dumbbell row, and any type of walking lunge are 4 high ROI movements for me.
Mm. Those are big. I think during COVID we had no choice but to do those reverse to forward lunges at some point. I think that was like the only thing that we had to really work
Things
with.
that
But no,
wacky.
there's things that wacky.
Things that wacky.
Those are good. Those are good. I love those. The one arm row and the single leg RDL landmine. That one's good. I like. I don't really think about having that as a first type of way to as a teaching tool, but
Mhm.
that totally makes sense because I think we're taught early on bilateral, then single lateral or unilateral work, and then typically that's the progression when it comes to um, your standard programs of teaching,
Mhm.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for movements where I can push intensity quick
Yeah.
with low risk for injury. Like those 4 movements that I just brought up, to me they're pretty low risk for injury.
Yeah.
I don't have too many people coming back talking about their backs hurting them because they did walking lunges,
Yeah.
or like so.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think like it's too easy. And I mean, one of our missions in trying to simplify in the face of complexity in our industry, like it's too easy to get caught in like theory world where it's like, on paper, all these movements make sense and train these qualities, but like in the real world with real people, they don't make sense. Either because, like you said, we can't push intensity, or they can't competently perform the movement in the first place. Like there's so many reasons why like a hang clean might not make sense. A kettlebell, certainly, like you said, might not make sense. So like let's start with things that they can do that we can train hard, right? And then that allows us to
Exactly.
get after it. Everyone feels that they're training. We start seeing results quickly. We're building confidence through competence, like you said earlier, quickly. Like all these good things can start to happen now.
Why do people? What is one thing that beginners love the most about going out for a run? Or not even beginners, just as anyone, runners high. You get endorphins that release when you push yourself to a certain level and then you get
Mm.
done. Man, that was great. Like I did that. Is I feel like we get too complicated, too complex. And when people get frustrated
Mm,
or they're having to worry about too much technique and which leg and this cross body is they're rarely pushing themselves enough to get a workout high to where they want to come back and experience it again. So I need to get them hooked first, and then I can start putting in more complex patterns when they're bought into the training process and the results. But if I start too complex, they don't see the results. They never get
yeah.
pushed to their threshold. And so I find that yeah, we get too smart. We try to check too many boxes early on.
Yeah, and you mentioned people pushing themselves, but another one that jumped out to JT and I was your note from a coaching standpoint that people need to be pushed by us coaches. So I'm assuming talking specifically about like how we deliver things. So why that one? Like where's that one coming from a lesson standpoint?
Yeah, I think the quote I used was people are like wheelbarrows. They don't work unless they're pushed.
I like
And
that.
so I would use, so I have a video, each of my girls, I have 5 girls under 10, right? Each of my girls, so we live in Phoenix, there's a swimming pool in everyone's backyard, including mine. And so you need to learn how to swim early here,
Mhm.
right? Just for safety.
Yeah.
Uh, so we take all of our kids when they're 2 years old to a swim boot camp, and it's in the teacher or the coach is named Michelle. She runs out of her house, and it's literally a boot camp. And so in 2 weeks, she guarantees that your kid, your 2-year-old, will be able to swim more or
Mm.
less. And it's true. We've taken 4 of our first 5 there, but here's what she does: is I have a video that I play where she will drop the kid in, she drops my kid in, and she will make them paddle back to the wall.
Mm.
And on one video, my kid is underwater for 15 seconds.
Oh
Now,
dang.
15 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but if we pause right here for 15 seconds and imagine your kid being underwater, your 2-year-old, for that long. You'll realize that's a long ass time.
Yeah.
And like where you're as a parent watching it and your toes are starting to curl.
Yeah.
And so she's like sitting there tapping her head and trying to pull her back to the wall, and you got to keep swimming. You got to keep swimming. And my Josie, this video I have, she comes up out of the water and she just vomits all this water,
Yeah.
right? Because that's how long she was under. And I show that video to say, Josie, do you think in 2 weeks, do you think Josie would have been swimming had she not been pushed like that? No. And people are similar. Adults are similar. Is they need to be pushed out of their comfort zone. They wouldn't be coming to us or you if they didn't need to be pushed and held accountable. And so, yeah, I bring that up as a lesson because I think I've seen the pendulum swing, and I think it swung at some point several years ago, probably a little bit too far towards the client-led approach and like
Yeah.
cheering them on, and you didn't do a bad job. It's okay that you missed your workout, or you didn't fail, but and we started to slip a little bit, and we didn't hold. I'm seeing like some standards not being held. And so, yeah, I think as coaches, this is where the art of coaching comes in, is you got to know how to be sometimes a cheerleader and a friend and a guide, but every now and then you got to know how to stick your foot up somebody's ass and get them to push themselves a little bit too. So, yeah, that was one of my lessons.
I mean, at a certain point, if you can't do that, then you're doing your client a disservice to a certain degree, right? And I think, like you said, with the pendulum swinging, like two things can be true. Like I can be empathetic, and I can also hold you accountable, or hold you to a certain standard, right? They don't have to. It doesn't have to be a dichotomy. We can do both of those things. So, I mean, I think back, maybe my dad wasn't so wrong for just tossing me in the pool when I was 2. He said he just ass in the pool, splash.
That's what it did to you.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I got to the wall, but it was traumatic. It would probably be better in it would have been better in a structured lesson.
Yeah, maybe on second thought. So, but yeah, I'm with you, Phil. Is that a coach? The great ones have a deft touch on the toggle. They can toggle from putting your arm around someone and loving them up and being there for them, but also knowing when you need to give them a push or a nudge from behind.
Yeah. So you talked about the standard, right? Or holding people to a standard. So holding the adults that come in to train with you to a certain standard. So in line with that, are there any other standards or maybe like pet peeves that you have that you kind of hold everyone to that same level in your groups?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I have some coaching pet peeves. So I use Zach DeChant said, you're either coaching it or allowing it. With what he said. And so the 3 pet peeves that I have are, number 1 is you never stop at 1 second. Never. And so you only do it once if you're training with me.
Yeah.
And so meaning I like when I coach too, I don't count down 3, 2, 1 because everyone stops at 1. Is no, you go to the whistle. Or go or through the whistle even. So number 1 is like you're getting taxed if I see you stop early before I call time. Like I am the voice and you listen for me, and all I say is one word. I say time.
Yeah.
You listen for time. So that's 1. 2 is full range over everything. Full range of motion. So and yes, are there exceptions to the rule? Yeah. So I'm sure someone's going to come back, but
We're going to post this clip and there's going to be 1,000 comments of people being like, well, actually.
I know, but full range. So, because to me, the best stretching program is a quality strength program.
For sure.
So if I'm doing full range, rear split squats and pull-ups and push-ups, those are loaded stretches. And so I want to strengthen you through your range of motion. And I think some of the best mobility work is done in the weight room.
For sure.
So that's my second, is teaching full range. And the third is stack spine. Stack spine all the time under compression. Okay. And yeah, I know our spines are meant to bend and move in different ways. I'm talking when you're doing RDLs and swings and squats and landmine presses, like, then your low back, your lumbar spine has got to be stacked.
Yeah.
Because you only get one of those. You only get one lumbar spine. And once you have a herniated disc, it never goes back. So once that jelly pushes out of the Uncrustable, like, it doesn't go back in. So so as a coach, you got to keep it stacked, and coach that, and have a quick eye and know it's black and white. There's no gray to me with neutral spine under compressed loads. So I see too many coaches that let it go, that cheer someone on because, because they're trying for a PR, they're going a heavy set of squats. I'm like, I'm not that guy. I'm that coach that's like, I'm going to call your ass out, tell you to back the weight down, tell you to go lower, tell you to stay tighter on your squat, and then we'll build it up.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're literally caring for them, right? Because of that fact. And I like how you mentioned the full range. It doesn't take a doctor to know that full range is king there, right?
Exactly.
That's out of control. Out of control today. Absolutely out of control. Oh man, sweet. No, I absolutely love them, and I think like for a coach, that made me kind of reevaluate, like, and sort of reflect on what are my personal standards, and I'm thinking back to times where I've let stuff slide when I probably should not have, right? So like weren't even upholding my own standards within a class. So it's like a good reminder really for anyone, right, to like identify those things and try to hold them true the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously those don't, maybe you don't agree with any of those. Maybe those aren't your pet peeves as a coach.
Yeah.
But I find some standards where you plant your flag in the ground and you're like, yeah, this is what I hold in high regard in my training sessions, and this is how we do things. That's part of setting culture, is how you're going to do things within your training sessions and your groups. And, if anything goes, or they don't know what to expect day to day, sometimes they get coached on the depth of their squat. Sometimes you let it go because they're doing quarter squats. They're up in the attic. I want them in the basement below sea level. You got to learn, it's got to be consistent. And so those three things are three things that I'm consistent with in the way that I coach.
Yeah, I love that. I think early on, as coaches, we don't really know what we stand on, so I think it's useful to hear that. Even not early on, like as a coach now, what are your standards? Have you understood that? Have you took time to reflect, to look at that for yourself, and definitely moving forward to really see what your values are, right, as a coach, and how do you not let things slip? But no, I hope those lessons come into a book that you could probably put on the shelf behind you at some point.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll save some room on my bookshelf, but I know your time is valuable, so I want to definitely land this plane, because I know we could talk for 4 hours here, but I did want to take us through some rapid but not so rapid fire questions. I put rapid fire on the IG, but I don't think I really clarified what that means. But anyway,
that relatively rapid.
Relatively rapid. So you can answer these as quick or as in depth as you like. But first one came from Coach Marius, if I'm pronouncing Coach's name correctly. But who would you say inspired you through your career that you have learned from?
The first was my mentor at Exos when I first came in, Corey Goodwin. So very few people are probably going to know of him. Doesn't have a big presence on social media or anything like that. But Corey was who I stole from as an intern, like everything, his mannerisms, his energy, his enthusiasm. And he took me under his wing. And so, I owe him a lot. He's like a big brother to me. So I would say Corey was definitely one of those guys. I mentioned Mark Verstegen, reading his books coming out. I mean, the dude, like, he revolutionized the game by building a one-stop shop where you take all these experts and put them under one roof. I mentioned Mike Boyle. I mean, Mike is like to me, he's like the godfather of performance training at this point, but he's still doing it too. He's still doing it. So yeah, get any of Mike's books. I mean, gosh, he's got so many podcasts out there, Strength Coach podcast. Here's probably, I'll mention one more. And this is the guy who I've read the most about. If you're serious about strength training, programming, the art of strength power programming, Christian Thibodeau. Christian Thibodeau, read the Black Book of Training Secrets by Christian Thibodeau. I think it's probably just an ebook at this point, but
you can get it on Amazon. I was like looking for my copy. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon.
Okay. So yeah, when coaches ask me about like learn more about programming and trying to put these thoughts together, and they have a copy of Super Training on their shelf. I'm like, here, read Christian Thibodeau's Black Book of Training Secrets, because it's going to boil all that 500 pages of textbook down into a really digestible 65 pages.
Yeah.
And it's a great place to start. But yeah, Christian has put out so much good stuff over the years.
Yeah, I like that. I think during college, everybody else had a little black book. That was my little black book that I'd reference to. Something a little different.
Out of control.
Love it. Next one. Shout out Coach Emma. She was wondering, what was your most embarrassing gym fail?
I don't have too many embarrassing gym fails, but like I probably don't put myself in that situation to have embarrassing ones. But here's one I thought of lately is, so big single leg squat fan, load them up, weight vest, chains. I'll do like barbell front rack, single leg squat, like squat to a bench, drive up. But for some reason I was like, hey, my goal is to squat 95 pounds, front racked, single leg squat with 95 pounds. So I threw 95 pounds on the bar and control it down, like felt good, touched the bench, and I didn't even come close to getting off the bench. I think because I usually do with like a couple 20-pound weight vests or something, like I probably have like 40, 50 pounds. That jumped to 95 pounds. I did not budge.
Stapled.
So I got some work to do to get that 95-pound front rack single leg squat. Let's just say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The relaxed ISO, not so relaxed. Love it.
Just get some pillow work in there. Just chilling. Just sit on the bench hanging with it.
Yeah, just don't mind me. Just keep hanging out.
Right. Speaking of relaxed, what shout out Coach Sebastian. What are your go-to personal recovery strategies?
There you go, JT.
Thank you.
JT's been struggling. He's been practicing that word all week.
I can't pronounce that word for some reason. Strategies.
It was smooth.
Thank you.
If I sleep past 5:30 a.m., so if I sleep in until 6:30 or 7 a.m., that's a big recovery strategy of mine. So I'm gonna get, instead of 7, and I'm a big believer in the 90-minute sleep cycles. So I sleep for 7.5 hours every night. Not to be like, but so, hour and a half, 3, 6, 7.5. So I'm like 7.5 hours, bam, wake up. So if I want to recover more, I'm going to go to 9 and hit an extra REM cycle. And then on my off days, or like maybe just a little bit of a recovery or maybe cardio day, I cold plunge 1 to 2 times a week, just 10 minutes, like just to get a little boost, recharge, reset. So cold plunge, extra sleep.
Okay.
Crazy.
It's just
Staples.
good to see you still taking time for you to get right. That like
5:35.
I'm one of my goals is just anti-dad bod. Anti-dad bod. You know,
That's
you
fair.
don't let it creep in.
You're just making a new definition of that word. That's all it is, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions. We boiled it down to the few that we definitely wanted to hear more about. What did you do? Another one from Coach Marius. What did you do in your training 5 to 10 years ago that you would never do now?
Geez, I mean, I don't have a great answer for that one. I think there are. I put up a post recently that really seemed to make some folks mad. I pointed out a few movements that I would retire, so
Mm-hmm.
maybe that would count. For instance, I said retire bent over barbell rows, and that apparently didn't go over well with some folks. So I said, so bent over barbell rows, range of motion is too short, and it requires too much low back, posterior chain stability at the expense of me getting my back strong, my upper back strong. So I'm like, do one arm dumbbell rows, seated machine rows, like over that was my good mornings were another one. Like I just don't like loading my upper back while doing a hip hinge. So if you want to do a good morning, do a single leg good morning. If you want to load the hinge, do RDLs.
Mm-hmm.
Put the bar in your hand.
Yeah.
I think I shrugs. I was like, shrugs are boring. And they're just so dumb. Like elevate my shoulders and put them back down. Like what if you're trying to like build your traps, go Olympic lift, go farmer carry. But and everyone's traps are locked up and rocked up these days anyways. Like I don't need to give them any more stimulus than they already get. I'm trying to tone them down for most people. So
Yeah.
I'm like I'm not a shrug fan. So I don't know. I guess those are three that I'm like, yeah, they're off the list for 99% of the folks that I work with.
Tell you what, I was in the gym. I think I was reading that post in the middle of my bent over row barbell
Damn.
set, and then some guy was asking me behind me, like, "Are you almost done?" Like, "Yeah, I'm done. You can have that." That bar.
I'm never doing this shit again, sir.
It's all yours. On that note, that question, one of the questions I've been asking everyone about, literally, recently, one of my favorite questions is, what is one thing you've changed your mind about recently in the human performance industry? Or if you wanted to have a different route of that question, is there something that you've been a little bit more curious about to learn?
Ooh, if you ask me curious, where I've been going in the last year or two is I took a couple courses from a guy named Fabio Zonin with Strong First, called Plan Strong and Built Strong. And those two are about how do you wave your intensity from macro, so like month to month, but also week to week and intra-session with your big lifts, with your barbell lifts and trap bar deadlifts, things like that. Your primary lifts is how do you program those lifts over the long term for guys like us, right, who like to train. I mean, this isn't a lesson for your average, gym pop client, but for someone who gets after it and likes to train and keep your lifts and your percentages and your PRs, how can you do it for the long term? And so, the big lessons coming out of there are you need more variability week to week in your volume and your intensity. You need a 20% variability in your number of reps and your so like take barbell bench. I bench on Fridays. 1 week I'll have 30 reps total, like split up into maybe 7 sets. And then the next week I need a 20% change. So instead of 30 reps, I've got to at least have 6 less reps. So but I may have more than a 20% change. I may have like a 40% change. So one week I do 30 reps. The next week I do 18 reps. But the weight that I'm still using like intense loads.
Yeah.
But anyways, I don't want to go into it like too in depth and bore people, but those were, I got the spreadsheets and everything up, and it's made a huge difference in keeping me mentally engaged instead of just doing linear periodization, right? All right, my 4 sets of 8, my 4x6, my 5x5, like the drill is I can keep the same movements in. So I'm trap bar, deadlift, front squat, barbell bench, and then I overhead press, like barbell military overhead. Like those are my 4 lifts. And I pretty much keep those in consistently, and I vary the intensities and the volume change big time week to week, month to month. And I like never know what's coming week to week. And so I look at my sheet and I'm like, oh man, like it can be like a ball buster day or it could be a light day. So
Nice.
yeah, I think varying the intensity week to week, month to month, I would highly recommend the Plan Strong by Fabio Zonin if you're into programming like that.
Almost, believe me, you would not bore the people that are listening. So
That's
if you
true.
wanted to go more in depth
You
to
could have
that,
went.
you can. It's almost like
Well,
a
okay, one more thing. So on that, here's the other thing is 5, like for your primary lifts, 5 reps is the magic number. Like Mark Ripito, and like 5 is a nice magic number for primary strength. But what Fabio and what they've done from looking at some of the Russian text is instead of doing like 5 sets of 5, right? I do 5, I do 5, I do 5, is break it up into, for instance, here's a wave that they use is 2, 3, 5. So I do a set of 2, and then a set of 3, and then a set of 5 reps. The weight stays the same. So I keep the load the same, but you break it up and you're giving yourself variability within your session of easy set, medium set, push set. And what it does is it gives you more practice because you get more times like unracking the bar, getting set up. It keeps you really crisp because like your set of 2 and your set of 3, you're really like locked in and practicing because you only have a couple reps, 2, 3 reps. And then you go do your set of 5, which is you're like, all right, here we go. Like, let's lock in. And that's your push set. But you just do more sets. So to get 25 reps, I got to do 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5, and then again, 2, 3. So that's 8 total sets instead of 5. But it's quicker because I don't need as much rest. So I'll do 2 reps. I'll walk away, maybe do a quick mobilization, come back. 3 reps, go away from the bar. But that style is I really enjoy it because it's not just like grind every set. It's like crisp, practice, then grind, and then crisp, practice, then grind. And so for me, it feels like it's helped keep me healthier, less like niggles and injuries that pop up, and I get to practice a little bit more. So breaking your sets down into the first 2 sets, the sum of your first 2 sets equals the amount of reps you do in your third set. So let's say I want to do 8s. I would do 3, 5, 8. Or if I want to do sets of 6, if you were going to do set of 6, you do 2, 4, and then 6 reps on your third set. So you get more practice, you stay fresher, and it also helps give you some variability within your workout.
Love that.
Okay, I like that a lot. Especially speaking to other meatheads. Like even the thought of doing a hard 5x5 makes me really sad, having done that so many times. So spending time, maybe yeah. Again, like you said, more total sets, but the volume's the same. From a strength perspective, we're still getting a very similar stimulus, and then like more good reps. Like how can I get more good reps?
Exactly. He's got if anyone's interested listening, if you want to try it out, like you're kind of interested and you don't want to jump into a 2-day weekend course to learn, he's got a program. If you search 5 and then the letter T as in Tom and then R, Romeo, and then M. So 5 TRM. TRM stands for Training Rep Max. He has you take your training, not like all out
Yeah.
smelling salts max, but like what's your hard push in your training? And then he's got I think it's 8 or 12 week program where you practice those waves, those 2, 3, 5s and some different waves. So if you're into it, I would like try that program. I did it my first time. It's called the 5 TRM back squat program by Fabio Zonin. I did it with trap bar deadlifts instead. But yeah, that would be somewhere to start if you're looking for something new.
I love it. Yeah, we can definitely link that and his stuff in the show notes. But I mean, absolutely love it. Just speaking to my heart again. Trying to keep
All right,
training fresh.
we'll check back in 3 months and see how you did.
see if I'm still here. But Joel, no, thank you again for your time. This has been absolutely incredible. I mean, JT and I learned a ton ourselves, so we always talk about people dropping bars, and I think you came in and dropped a handful of bars here on the listeners yourself. Too many bars for free. So Joel, where can people find you? Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, the best place to find me is Instagram. So at Coach Joel Sanders. So hit me up, send me a message, and even there I've got my link for Wolf Strength Company and everything else. So yeah, Instagram.
Sweet, I love it. JT, where can people find you?
CoachJT.mp3, and make sure you get your wedge and the strap. That's big game changers.
Get right.
Yeah. Add them to your toolbox. Hey, thanks for having me on, and congrats on the podcast. And it's excited to see what you guys are doing.
Hey, Joe, we appreciate you. You can find me on IG at Nashville, and you can find the show on Instagram at Pushin' Performance. No G, because like Joel's boy Wheezy F Baby said, real G's move in silence, like lasagna. Joel, thank you again for being on the show. We'll definitely have to have you back on it sometime down the road, because I think there's a couple different ways we can take this conversation.
Anytime.